Viewers and listeners joining us from different parts of the world, welcome to yet another special edition of the David Chikwasa Global South Indaba. You're watching episode 7 of our series entitled Speaking from Experience, How to Land a Highly Competitive Scholarship. Today on the platform, I'm joined by my friend David Yameogo of Villanova University, USA. David is currently under the Sustainable Engineering Department Scholarship, and he is a research fellow in humanitarian engineering and international development. David, my brother, welcome to the Indaba.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure having me here.
Lovely. Dave, in a minute, could you please reflect on what inspired you to apply for a scholarship and the impact winning a scholarship made on your life?
Thanks again, David. David. Yeah, so first of all, I want to say that my home country is Burkina Faso, and I migrated in the US in 2015. I took a year and a half to learn English because I'm a native French speaker. And then after that, I wanted to go to get a first degree in environmental engineering, and I got it in New York. And then later on, I started to work in the US. And not that I didn't like what I was doing, but I felt like what I was doing don't have a big impact for my community, for my people back home. That's why I started to look for something that will take me back home. And I end up finding this sustainable engineering program at Villanova, and also having this department of humanitarian engineering and international development. I felt like I should get in, try to do something for my community, but I was limited by the resources. So I just show my profile, show what I can do, show how I can do it. I think the most important thing that I was showing is where I'm coming from, what I need, and what I will be doing with what I will got out of Villanova. So I just took, that was my motivation, and basically, getting funded to do some research, to travel all over the world in developing countries, getting something done for your people, it's really touching your heart. And that's what I'm doing right now. I've been involved with a lot of projects in Madagascar, Ghana, Burundi, and it's lovely to be there. It's lovely to help people. You have a really warm heart when you're doing those type of things.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Dave. I'm also joined by Laura Nicole of the University of Galway. She studied a Master of Arts in Gender Globalisation and Rights. Nicole, my friend, welcome, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much, David.
Nicole, like Dave, what inspired you to apply for a scholarship, and what impact has the scholarship made, or winning the scholarship made on you or your life in general?
I am from Sierra Leone, and I have been working with an organization that provides legal representation, pro bono legal representation for women and girls that are exposed to sexual and gender-based violence. So working for that organization gave me, or exposed me, to see the need that there is a need for gender experts in Sierra Leone, because women are really being faced. We have a society where it's patriarchal in nature, where there are clear violation of gender rights, of women's rights and children. So I was like, of course, I'm a lawyer. I forgot to mention that. I'm a lawyer. And then I'm like, I need something that would give me the necessary expertise and as well as international exposure. So when I saw the Ireland Fellows Program, I'm like, yeah, I'm going for this. And I'm not just going for any LLM or anything like that. I want to do gender, and I want to know the impact of gender in a globalized world and how we could tackle the gender inequalities in Sierra Leone. So yeah, that was my motivation.
Also joining us is Tapie G Nherera, joining us all the way from Glasgow University, United Kingdom. He is an esteemed recipient of the Turkish Government Scholarship class of 2020 and a current awardee of the Erasmus Mundus Scholarship of the Joint International Masters in Security Intelligence and Strategic Studies, hosted by the University of Glasgow, UK. Tapie, welcome to the Indaba.
Thank you, Dave.
Tapie, In the same vein, in a minute, could you reflect on what inspired you to apply for scholarships and the impact winning scholarships has made on your life?
Well, thank you, Dave. Mine has been a journey of personal discovery. And I think from a tender age, I've always identified myself as a pacifist. I was always been inspired and interested in resolving conflicts amongst, me and my friends. And as I grew up, I sort of started to pursue that, passion way more. And this has inspired me to try and study the field of conflict and conflict management in detail. And to this date, I have really pursued, studies related to conflict management programs, actually directly linked to conflict resolution. And through this process, I've also carried out research with different organizations, particularly the Rights Institute of Southern Africa. I forgot to mention I'm from Zimbabwe, by the way. I carried a research with the Rights Institute of Southern Africa, where we conducted a research on the transition and the politics in Zimbabwe. I think from that moment, my passion for conflict management and conflict management related research sort of escalated. And in that process, I decided to further my studies and, sort of entrench myself a little bit deeper in terms of understanding the dynamics of conflict and conflict management. And to that end, I applied for the Turkish Government Scholarships. Under that scholarship, I studied a degree in peace and conflict studies, a master's. And then currently I'm now studying the intelligence side of things in Glasgow, trying to, see how intelligence also plays a critical role in conflict management. So precisely my journey has been to strengthen myself as a humanist and as a pacifist.
Last but not least, we are joined by Dr. Gertrude Gwenzi of Africa Center, Hong Kong. She has been awarded 3 prestigious academic scholarships in her academic career, including the Hong Kong PhD Fellowship, Irish Aid Fellowship, and Zimbabwe Presidential Scholarship. Dr. Gertrude, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
In a minute, could you please reflect on what inspired you to apply for scholarships? You have a track record of applying for scholarships. And what impact winning scholarships has made on your life?
Thank you. That's a very good question to reflect on. I think my first scholarship, the Zimbabwean presidential one, was more needs-based. I had a financial need as soon as I finished my A-level. So as you know, it's usually for actually it's for applicants from disadvantaged backgrounds, which is one that I was coming from as well. So my first scholarship was truly a needs-based one. I had a desire to pursue my education and I could not afford to do so, even though I wanted to. So I was able to motivate that, I had the potential, I want to study, and, I just don't have the means, but I want to. And just reflecting back on that journey and seeing where I've come all the way up to PhD level, it's a testimony of my desire that I was saying back then. I got my first scholarship in 2005, and that's when I did my first degree. And then when I did my master's, there was a huge gap. So I finished my first degree and I worked for 5 years. I hope I'm not selling my age here, but I worked for 5 years before I went back to school. So I worked, and it was during that work period, my first degree was social work. So I did a bachelor's in social work, and then I started practicing as a social worker, and there was a disconnect between my practice and the policies that I was trying to engage with at the time. And then me being a natural academic, I was like, I've got too many questions. I want to go back to school. Something is not making sense here. So that's when I applied for the Irish Fellows Program. I was living in South Africa at the time, and so it was open for South Africans and Zimbabweans. So I applied for the Kada Asmal part of the Irish Fellows Program. And then, so I did my master's and then I applied for PhD. The PhD was more so of just continuing with the academics because I discovered a deep love for it, a deep love for research, a deep love for, I think, creating knowledge, if I can say that. Knowledge production, I think is the correct term. And the impact has really just been more doors opening. So after my master's, I think I got the PhD because of my experience in Ireland, having to motivate the fact that I've been exposed to that kind of environment made me more competitive for the next scholarship. And also just being able to actually experience more than just one country made me a global citizen, which stands out most in, academic scholarships. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Remarkable stories from all of you. So we're just going to, without further ado, proceed to the next segment of our Indaba. David, in the context of your scholarship, please kindly make a 10-minute presentation on the topic, speaking from experience, how to land a highly competitive scholarship.
Thanks again, Dave. Something that I usually advise to people, if you want me to go step by step and explain how to get into a highly competitive scholarship, I usually say you should start by looking at what you want to do. Look for what you want to do. Find the school first. Look in the school who is doing it. It's very important to look at the professor who is doing it. And then the first thing that you should do, try to get a one-page personal statement, and then clean up your cover, your CV, and then send both of them to the professor, and then wait. If the professor doesn't get back to you a week, 2 weeks later, go back again. Because for my perspective and what I'm doing in the international development world, your story is sometimes more important than your grades. What you want to do, it's sometimes more important than getting, A+ or A. So that's the step that I usually tell people to take. Start by getting a contact into the university and then tell them what you want to do, tell them where you are coming from and the knowledge that you will gain in that school, how that will help you to achieve your life goal, and show the impact. Once you do that, once you try to establish the first contact, if they don't get back to you, try to go back again, and make sure you mention some of their work. So you gotta go read, make sure what they are doing align well with what also you are planning to do. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. And then when you start by doing these things, you're starting to establish a communication with, a relevant professor. And once they pick you, once they like your story, they will likely start to advocate for you. And if they have the money, if they have the resources to get you into the program so that you can work for them and then you can get the scholarship and they will be paying your tuition, they will let you get in. I think most of the time that's my strategy. That's what I'm doing. I am not a really, really, smart student, but I usually try to establish a contact. And from what I learned in the US, professor, they like the student to show their story, to show, especially us coming from developing countries, why we are here. I'm not here to stay here. I'm here to learn something, take it, bring it back home, and make my developing country to a developed country. Thank you.
Very succinct. Thank you so much, David. Very good points raised there. The issue of establishing a contact and the aspect of ensuring that when you do make contacts, you do mention some of the works that they have done, be it a professor, be it a lecturer, so that you create that connection beyond just asking for them to consider you for a scholarship or for funding. So I'm just going to proceed to Nicole. Nicole, it is the same task in the context of your scholarship. Please kindly make a 10-minute presentation on the topic, speaking from experience, how to land a highly competitive scholarship. Over to you, Nicole.
Thank you so much, David. If I could share my story, I have a background in law, of course, and I was working for a governmental organization in Sierra Leone, but it's a maritime organization. And I was also doing part-time work. I am still doing part-time work with the Legal Access to Women Yearning for Equality Rights, which is a pro bono organization providing services to women and girls. So when I wanted to apply for the scholarship for the Ireland Fellows Program, I was like, what do I want to do? So I had to make a decision because I was both a maritime lawyer working for the maritime industry and also doing providing pro bono legal services to women and girls. So I was like, what do I want to do? Am I going for maritime or am I going for women's related studies? So that's where it should start, like knowing what you want to do. So I was like, okay, yes, I've decided I'm not interested in maritime law. I don't want to do anything about maritime law. I want to do something that has to deal with women and rights and gender as a whole, not just women, gender, understanding the impact of gender as a whole. And therein, I'm like, okay, I wanted to do gender studies. And then the second, to reflect also on my story, I read through the requirement of the Ireland Fellows Program. And to my amazement, they were like, if where you're working, it's applicable to just government workers, but your government institution has to partner with the Irish Aid Embassy or the Ireland Embassy. And I was like, at that time, I was working full-time for the maritime industry. And I was like, I don't even know if the maritime industry is a partner with Irish Aid. And then I had to call the embassy. I was like, is a maritime part of is it a partner of the Irish Aid? Or is lawyers, the other organization, is it a partner of the Irish Aid? And I was told clearly, maritime is not a partner of Irish Aid. So if you apply for maritime law, you will not get it. But my other organization, which is called Lawyers, is a partner with the Irish Aid. And if you apply for something, you will get it. And I'm like, okay, so I have this. So I'm like, okay, so my other organization, which is Lawyers, deals with gender and women's rights. And I'm like, so if I am to apply for this Ireland Fellows Program, that is the application, that is the work that I should use, not the maritime work. So my second point is you have to know the requirements of the fellowship, of the application you're making. You do not just want to apply for anything, because I believe different fellowships or different scholarships, they have their requirements. And it's not just because they say it's applicable to every governmental institution or every individual, that means it is. Some people, they're very specific, like the Ireland Fellows Program, it was very specific. You have to be a partner with Ireland, the Irish Aid. And if you are not a partner, you can't get the scholarship. So I want people to be encouraged that if you are applying for any scholarship, you need to know the details. You need to know every detail. Don't come just ask people or just apply blindly like that. You need to know the details. And as David mentioned, you have to be motivated to give back to the society. In as much as it is about knowledge and acquisition, in as much as it is about having the international exposure, for me, I feel like it's also more about how you could demonstrate in your cover letter, in your motivational letters, in your personal statement. It's how you should communicate that you're willing to give back. You're willing to give back. And I don't know if I've taken much of the time, but then you have to reflect. You have to reflect on what you love. That's the thing. You have to do what you love and how it aligns with your experiences. Sometimes some scholarships, like you can deviate far away from your experiences, but others want you to connect with your previous experiences. So applying for the Ireland Fellows Program and applying for gender studies, I was required to submit experiences of my work, like how it connects. So there has to be some connection. whilst others may not specify that, you do not need it for some other scholarship, but that's why I said it's important to know the details of the scholarship. So you need to have the experiences, the one that you love and that aligns with the requirements of the program. I am a lawyer, and everybody was like, why didn't you do LLM? Because that's the thing. When you are doing a master's and you're a lawyer, you are like expected to do an LLM, and if everybody's expecting you, do LLM. But there was no LLM in gender for Ireland program here. And so there were just MA or MSCs in gender studies or anything or something like that. I'm like, no, I'm going to do what I love and also what I have experienced and also what I can get, because it is who is a partner or who is in partnership with Irish Aid Fellowship. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Very remarkable and important points you have raised there. Just trying to highlight a few things of the things that you've mentioned. You have talked about you need to know what you want. That's the starting point. And the second point is you need to do your research before you commence your scholarship application. Some applications, they have specifics, and it's very important that you know those specifics and you align. Very, very important. Don't be generic. You don't want to be generic. You want to be specific in your application. Thank you so much, Nicole. Just going to move on to Tapie G Nherera. Tapie, same task. Over to you, Tapie.
Thank you, Dave. I can start off by saying that lending a competitive scholarship is a cumulative process, at least in my case. I just didn't, wake up one day and I've landed these prestigious scholarships, but I had to go through a cumulative process of trying to, make deliberate decisions that got me to this level. So I think one of the first and most important things that have been critical to my story is researching, of course, but researching about scholarships that can potentially fit my goals. That's the first thing. And in the process of researching about these scholarships, I've made it a point that I group and document or sort of create folders in my computer that are related to certain scholarships that I'm intending to apply for, or at least considering to apply for. Because one of the things that I've seen many people do, and what I still used to do back then when I was not that organized, I just used to research scholarships, put a lot of information out there, but not to really parcel it in a way that can allow me to track my progress, allow me to check and confirm the deadlines and stuff like that and the requirements. I think Nicole said a critical point that, research, know what is required by the scholarship. And I think with this internet having multitudes of information, it's good. But in the process, if you don't really parcel out your information quite well and create a sort of tracking mechanism, you can actually get lost along the way, because there is no actual mechanism for you to, track your application process. And then the other thing that has been at least critical to me is motivational or personal statements. I encourage people who are considering to apply for scholarships not to only start writing or thinking about what they want to write when the scholarship deadline or when the scholarship advert is published out there. I really encourage people to do free writing of personal statements. Yes, it might sound crazy, but at least in my case, it helped me. I used to sit down and write ideas, write motivationals, even when I didn't have a specific scholarship that I'm targeting. That helped me in the sense that when a scholarship came out, this motivational structure or this sketch that I had, which already describes basically who I am and my objectives and what I'm aspiring to do, got to, kind of fit. I would simply adjust it into, the requirements of a specific scholarship that I'm looking at. So, you know, there are word limits and stuff like that. If it can only be easier for you when you practice free writing of motivational letters, such that when you have a scholarship that is coming up and the deadline is coming fast, you don't really need to start to then now scramble and start to think, oh my word, this deadline is coming up, or the scholarship is here, but I don't really know what to write. So if you do that in the process, you sort of sharpen your writing skills and, you know, ways to express yourself, and which is one of the things that people who advertise scholarships are actually looking for when they're assessing your application. So the advice is write as much as you can. Don't only wait for a time when you want to apply for a scholarship for you to start to write something and really consider your objectives or your aim, but let it be a cumulative process, a continuous process that you sort of engage in. And then the other thing that has been critical to me is making good use of networks. You see a lot of people struggle when they don't have recommendations, when they don't have people to review their motivationals. Why? Because when we go for undergraduate, or maybe when you are in high school, you have teachers that you know, you have lecturers that you know, you go to conferences, you meet people from different organizations, but you don't really network. And when the time for you to submit a recommendation, or someone to recommend you, or someone to review your motivational letter, you look left, you look right, you don't have anyone because you don't have a network. So for me, having a strong network has sort of formed a support system for me in the application process. Dave, you've been one of those people who've been reviewing my motivationals, and you know, we've been having sort of this peer review process. And I think it's very, very critical. If you don't have that, you know, strong network, I'm afraid it's going to be difficult for you to lend a good scholarship. So have these people who are your support system, who can review your motivational letters, who can recommend you. So scholarship winning is closely related to relationship building. Those are like, they are mutually inclusive. So you should always consider having good relationships. And then Nicole has sort of touched a little bit upon this, and I think also Steven has touched this up a little bit. Ask. Don't be hesitant to ask questions. So I'll give an example. When I was applying for the Erasmus Mundus Scholarship, the one that I got, I didn't know anyone who had done the program before, particularly. I knew people who had landed an Erasmus Mundus Scholarship, but I did not know anyone in particular who had been on the program that I was applying for. So I reached out to members of the staff, the coordinators at the University of Glasgow, University of Trento, and the Charles University in Prague. I was asking questions each and every time. How does this go? How do I do this and stuff like that? People are scared to reach out. People are scared to send out emails. But if you don't send emails, if you don't ask questions, you cannot make informed decisions. So if you're going to make informed decisions to land a competitive scholarship, go out there, ask, look for information, and don't have a pity party and say, oh no, I don't have enough information and I'm just going to submit this application and accept whatever comes when you don't have enough information. But be out there hunting for information, and it will prove very, very critical. And when you make these cumulative decisions, you will definitely land a very good scholarship. And then particularly speaking in the context of this Erasmus Mundus Scholarship that I am currently on, there has been things that were so particular or critical attributes that they have been looking for, which I encourage each and everyone to try and build upon. Like what I say, it's a cumulative process. The first thing is that you need to build some sort of research skills. So speaking to maybe scholars who are coming from the global south, where the culture for research is not really entrenched per se, I would say try as much as possible to build a research background. Some of the things I wish I did when I was an undergraduate student that I later on then now really started to invest in when I was doing my first and second masters is to research, find blogs that can, publish your work, find, journals that are accepting any form of a publication. I think if you started at a tender age, you not have to scramble when you're trying to apply for a PhD or when you're trying to apply for a master's, that all they need is some sort of research experience, and I don't have it. So make cumulative steps to try to build at least a strong research profile and build your research skills, because I believe that almost each and every scholarship that, publishes and advertises, that's what they are looking for nowadays. They want you to be able at least to research. And then the other thing is personal effectiveness, self-awareness, and innovativeness, and willingness to learn. I think it's something that you really need to demonstrate if you're going to land a competitive scholarship, because at the end of the day, you're going to acquire this knowledge. When you acquire this knowledge, you need to be an effective person at the end of the day, which alludes to what Stephen was saying, what Nicole was saying, that you need to go back to your community and give back to your community. And it speaks to personal effectiveness. Are you going to be an effective person once you are granted the scholarship and you get your degree and go back home or do whatever you do with your life? And then communication skills, I cannot stress this enough. It's in the motivationals. How do you put yourself across? Do you communicate what you want to communicate with brevity and precision? Those are questions. And then the last one is, of course, career management. At least in this program that I applied for, they were looking for career management. Are you someone who is willing, or who has a sense of direction, or what's your desire for professional development to acquire transferable skills? For instance, in my case, it has always been about conflict management, and particularly working or aspiring to work as an arbitrator. That has sort of given me the drive. And you cannot be an arbitrator who does not know the intelligence side of conflict management. You cannot be an arbitrator who does not know, different dynamics that are related to conflict management. So at least in my case, this has been my story. So ask for information, look for information, and define your career. So that's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Tapie. Very, very concise and very important points you have raised. There's a theme that is constantly emerging, and that theme is the theme of giving back. And I think that's really important. I think Dave mentioned it, Nicole mentioned it, the theme of they want to see whether or not you're willing to go back to your country and give back to community, contribute to sustainable development, contribute to development agenda. And Tapie, you added to that, and you said you want to show that you're competent, you want to show that you're effective, and you have the ability and the capacity to do just that. And I mean, you talked about a lot of things. I will not be able to, for the sake of time, summarize all of it. But I think the overall, and the first point that you mentioned was the point of it's a cumulative process. It's not a once-off thing. That's one thing that I sometimes want to really stress out about scholarship applications. People, they tend to wait for the announcement. And I think that's a bad thing to do. It's not a good thing to do. You don't have to wait for the announcement. There are annual scholarships. They're released annually. I think it would be wise, if it would be prudent for you to try to start your application as early as possible, because doing so will give you ample time to send it to the people that you want to review. You also talked about peer review, which I think is very important. Send it to people, and that is also hinged on your ability to build networks, your skill to build good strategic networks. You need to have a support system. I agree with you more than 100%. I personally, I didn't get where I am here all by myself. You know the story, Tapia. You know my journey. It has been a journey of that peer review from people like you, people peer review from people like, for example, not really peer, but senior review, how I would term it, from people like Dr. Shimanikire, Dr. Mandara, people like Anna Brazia, people like Sam Spiegel. You know, these people are the people that contributed immensely to me landing a highly competitive scholarship. So I agree with you more than 100% there. So thank you, Tapia, so much. So we're going to have Dr. Gertrude come in now with her presentation on speaking from experience, how to land a highly competitive scholarship. I know, Doctor, that speaking last is not always a good thing, because sometimes those who come before you, they tend to speak it all. But I know that you have some important things that you can still share with our viewers and listeners. Over to you, Doc.
I feel like everything that has been shared so far just points to a hunger, right? In my personal experience, I was very hungry for a scholarship. You need to show that dedication, that determination. I see a lot of applicants that kind of want either it's mentors or, you know, whoever they're reaching out to do the work for them. If you want to stand out in a very, you know, prestigious scholarship, you're gonna have to do a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. And one thing besides being hungry, as has been stated, you need to do a lot of research. You need to actually acquaint yourself with what kind of scholarship are you even looking for. Like I shared from my personal experience, my first scholarship was a needs-based one. So I wasn't necessarily the smartest person who applied for it. But then, you know, you need to be able to present. It goes back to the requirements that were shared by Laura, that you need to know the requirements of the scholarship. So if it's a needs-based scholarship, you need to focus more on showing that you have an actual need for the scholarship. That means you're not focusing too much on the other aspects. But then there are other scholarships that are merit-based, and there you need to stand out more by showing your grades or showing your leadership skills, showing your community skills. So it really, really makes a difference to read through what is required. And these scholarship providers always have goals and strategic goals annually. I always tell people that I also advise on scholarships that read through those strategic documents that they have. And I know Irish fellows or even the Hong Kong government, they put out annual reports of what they're looking for in terms of their strategic areas. You cannot apply for a scholarship in Asia, for example, and you're not saying anything about the what matters to them in their strategic goals. It really shows that you haven't done any research. Read strategic documents about the region where you're applying in. And I know the US might have different strategic, you know, goals. As we're coming from the Global South, we tend to think, oh, I'm from the Global South, they'll give me a scholarship just because. No, they don't know you from Adam. You have a lot of people you're competing against. Really stand out and show them. And I remember when I applied for the Island Fellows, it mattered to show them, what are you going to learn from the Irish people? You know, what are you going to, in terms of even the cultural exchange, it mattered to say, oh, Irish has a rich culture and I want to learn from that. It actually mattered to mention that, you know. So read about, you know, if you want to come to Hong Kong, if you want to go to Ireland, read about the culture and say something. Even if it's one line, it shows you've done something. So let's do away with the generic applications. And I want to emphasize as well the power of storytelling. Your story matters. As I said, for me, in my first scholarship, I had to actually document, you know, a need for the scholarship. Not all scholarships are going to be the same, but use your personal statement to really tell a story. Trust me, if you're trying to stand out of 100 applicants, your story is going to matter. So I'm big on storytelling. Where are you coming from? Who are you as a person? Trust me, people who review these would actually appreciate more someone that they feel, okay, there's a story here. But a lot of us have no knowledge of storytelling. We actually don't know how to tell stories. We want to write these very technical, generic things, and you're not going to stand out that way. scholarships are very competitive. Like I said, they're going through hundreds of them. So yeah, know the type of scholarship you're applying for, merit-based, needs-based. Then try your best to stand out. If you're coming through from an experienced background and you're kind of coming back into academia, then bring out those points that make you stand out from your industry and say, I've done this, but now I feel the need to add this bit. Make them feel important. You know, they're giving you money. They're giving you money. I've realized that, and I'm giving you advice for, you know, just from my experience. Make them feel really that they're doing you a favor. I'm not saying grovel or beg, but you are coming from an environment where you need this money. And if you're going to act like, oh, I got it all figured out, I don't need anything from you guys, it goes back to the story where you're saying, I need to give back to my country. I had to lay it on thick when I wrote my personal statement, like, back where I come from, this is not happening. And I need to go back and do this. That's how you stand out. So don't shy away from that. And one thing I would share as well is about approaching people that have done it before you. A lot of people that have won scholarships are very willing to share. I can't speak for everyone, but I know myself, like from all the scholarships that I've actually been fortunate to receive, I'm always willing to answer an email or, you know, respond to someone on social media. Ask, it goes back to what Tapie was sharing, ask. Because then if you don't have information, you're not gonna come up with a meaningful application. Get all the information you need, read strategic documents, know the region that you're applying to. We're all from different fields. It's also about knowing what is trending in your field. A lot of people, when they apply, it's very clear to see this person does not read at all. Like it's very clear. And you want to stand out. Like I said, it's competitive. And lastly, I think I'll go back to the issue of just having that drive. Don't expect, I think it has been shared as well, don't expect someone else to do it for you. And a lot of people don't have a structure, like what Tapie was sharing. You want to Google and see what scholar, it will overwhelm you. You'll be so overwhelmed because there are many scholarships that are going to come out and you don't even know where to begin. So have a bit of a structure, be organized, what scholarships are coming out in that year, and try to find the information beforehand. And a lot of people that give references, they're not going to appreciate being told, you know, just as you're about to apply, oh, can you give me a reference? Like, build those relationships ahead of time. A lot of people fail because of, you know, no one actually puts in the reference. And some of these references, you're not sending it yourself. They send, you know, privately to the person. So it's up to you to build those relationships. No one is going to do it for you. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's really how you're going to stand out, and be yourself. Stand out, tell your story. Don't be shy to really, but it needs to also be focused on the need of the scholarship. You can't be just laying it on thick when it's irrelevant. If they're looking for someone like you, you'll definitely get something. Yeah, but it takes a lot of work.
Dr. Gertrude says, be hungry, find out the strategic goals of the institution, the country that you want to go to, and make them feel important. That's very, very important. Indeed, these are people that you want them to give you money to fund your studies, to fund sometimes even your flights, and even you want them to fund even your expenses, your living expenses, you know. So you really need to make them feel important. You really need to. And this point, this theme, it keeps emerging, the power of storytelling. Very, very important. You know, I'm constant, even up to now, I'm constantly asking myself, how best can I tell my story? Constantly, I'm always asking myself. So you see, even when you go to LinkedIn, when you look at my my profile, I'm constantly trying to move things, because that's it. That's exactly what you need to do. How best can you tell your story? How best? It's because it's about your ability to tell your story and the quality of your story that will open doors for you. So very, very important there. Thank you so much, Doc. I mean, so much has been shared, and I cannot go into everything because we we are racing against time. So we're just going to go to the next segment. You will have 2 minutes to respond or comment on the submissions by other panelists. And to open this segment, I will start with Dave. Dave has been so quiet for a long time. It's time we bring him back. Dave, talk to us. Anything that you want to reflect on, anything that has been mentioned by your fellow panelists, or anything you want to emphasize?
Thanks again, Dave. Something that that's worth mentioning here, maybe I should have said it at the beginning, is the fact that we are sharing from our experience. So it may differ from one experience to another one. You guys applied to publish scholarship. I sent my stuff and then my resume and whatever, and then I saw there was a possibility to get a scholarship. So it may differ, it may change, but something that something that the other says that I feel really relevant, and I would like to underline it here, it's research. And I was fascinated by something that Gertrude and Tipawa says is start writing your personal statement, even without not having, the scholarship dropped. No, start writing your story. I never thought about it myself, and I'm learning a lot here. That's what it is about too. I never knew that I would be learning those type of things here. Yeah. So it's your story. You're living it every day. And as Gertrude said, Tapia said, Laura said, they want to know your story. One time, recently, a friend made me a good remark. That friend told me, she was like, David, when we meet you, you talk all the time. She was like, David, when we meet you, you start talking all the time about your work, your travel, but you don't talk about yourself. What is personal to you? Why are you doing it? When people meet you, you start talking about what you're doing in Madagascar, what you're doing your travel. Maybe you guys have noticed this, Nicole and Nicole and David, but they said, she said, you don't talk about yourself. You're personal. Why are you doing it? No one knows. They know you like what you're doing, but why are you doing it? It's more important than what you are doing. So that's my biggest take home here, your story, and start writing about everything before seeing anything. Thank you.
Absolutely remarkable. I agree with you. It's really, really remarkable. Storytelling, very, very remarkable. Nicole, this is your time. Anything that you want to reflect on, emphasize, or even ask?
Well, I think from all of the panelists, what I gather here also is the power of relationship and the importance to maintain them. I feel like most of the times, especially coming from Sierra Leone or let's say Global South in general, like I feel like sometimes we're like laid back to build relationships, and sometimes we feel like we are currying favor because, for instance, in Sierra Leone, we don't have that culture of building relationship, especially with lecturers. You don't even want to get close to them. So yeah, that is the background. Yeah, you don't want to get close to them because you're feeling you'll be victimized or something like that. A lot of pressure, especially being a woman. So you don't want to get close to them. So I've learned even through the scholarship process and even from the other panelists, the importance of building relationships and the power of storytelling. Of course, they cannot be overemphasized. And research, of course.
Very important, Nicole, investing in relationships. It's at that point that is very, very important because it's not only about scholarships, it's about life. It's about making it in life. Whether or not you're going to make it in life, it's about whether or not you have the skills to commence a relationship, service the relationship, maintain the relationship, build it into something big. That's what's going to determine whether or not you're going to make it or not in life. That's the honest truth. Something that is not well known by other people, but I really believe it's really true. Thank you so much, Nico, for highlighting that. And Tapie, this is your moment.
All right, thank you. There are particularly two things that that stand out, or that stood out rather for me. And I think other panelists have sort of emphasized that, but particularly I would like to start with what Laura emphasized. She said that her story was sort of transitioning from, I don't know, one branch of maybe law to maybe a more gender side of things. So the comment that I can make perhaps is that most of the people, sometimes they're very scared to make a transition. But I think if you look in the grand scheme of things, sometimes it is worth to consider that kind of a transition, because it might be a journey of self-discovery. You might discover some of the things about yourself that you didn't actually know. And just a point on that, I'd like to also capture or recap what Laura said about searching for information, particularly about transitioning. She mentioned the story, but most people are reluctant. They don't want to go to university websites to try to look at the program. What are the requirements or the alternative requirements? Because usually there are main requirements that are, you know, specific, and they can say also that alternatively someone with these kind of qualifications can also fit into the program. Sometimes maybe you are scared to make the transition, but you don't know that if you actually have maybe the alternative qualifications, maybe plus experience, you can actually fit into the program. So that's one of the very first things that you know, caught my attention. And then the second thing, of course, it relates to the story. We cannot emphasize it a lot. When I was telling my story, for example, for the Erasmus Mundus application, there are two particular things that I made sure they stood out in my application. I lived in Turkey when I was under the Turkiye scholarships. There were certain events that happened. By the way, when the Istanbul terror attack occurred, I was actually very close to the street where the terror attack occurred. So I used that story, for example, and I was like, you know what, in as much as I come from a developing country which has had a complicated political transition, complicated conflict negotiation processes, this terror event sort of like reignited that passion. It made me see like, oh, these things are very, very important. These things are very, very immediate. And by telling that story, I sort of managed to, you know, convince the people who are granting the scholarship to say, oh no, this guy he's sort of aware, and he's watchful of what is happening around him in terms or in line with what he's trying to achieve. So storytelling, it's great, and don't be afraid to make that transition. If you feel that if I transition to this field or to this branch of within the same field, I can actually discover myself.
Really outstanding. Thank you so much, Tapie. Very important. I won't add anything to that because of time, or try to highlight anything from that. So straight to Dr. Gertrude. This is your time.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to also talk about relationships and share how I didn't just wake up one day and decide I want to come to Hong Kong, I want to come to Asia. And it's only because my undergraduate tutor, sociology tutor, was here on a PhD fellowship. And because we maintained that relationship, he was like, you know what, you are a very strong academic. Why don't you try this? And it's only because we maintained that relationship. And I'm forever grateful, because information is not out there. Not a lot of people know there's a Hong Kong PhD scholarship, a very prestigious one at that, especially coming from my country. A lot of people don't know that there's money available to study. So there's a lack of information, but it can be found through research, through personal relationships. So I would emphasize that as well. And I want to also, you know, comment on what Tapie just said now about, you know, the events that have led you to this point of your application in your life. they matter. You didn't just wake up one day and decide, oh, now I want to apply for a scholarship. What are those events, and what, where are you now? How do they all fit into your story? And again, it's about the significance, especially if you want to do research. How significant is what you want to study, not just for your country, but it needs to have global significance. I noticed in my international scholarship applications, they care so much about global significance. It's not just about your little corner in the world, but what you want to do in Sierra Leone or, in Zimbabwe, how does it fit into the bigger picture of humanity, of the world? So you need to be able to have that global thinking. And again, I would mention the global citizenship aspect. How do you make yourself, the kind of person that is willing to be multicultural, willing to meet different people? Don't be closed off, open your mind. And I think it all goes back to who are you as a person, and really thinking through those questions. Lastly, a lot of people don't even know that you need an academic CV, which was something I had to learn as I started doing these scholarships. You need an academic CV. You can't just have a generic CV that is not even speaking to your academic journey, especially if you want to attract, as you go further, especially master's, PhD, you need to be able to show your research experience. You need to be able to show some of the things that you've done that align with what you're applying for. So have a streamlined academic CV, which is something that is now available online to know how you can do it. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
I don't want to waste time. I want to go straight to the fourth and last segment of our Indaba. And to open this Indaba segment is David again. David, please kindly comment on why the viewer listener ought to consider the US and your institution as their study destination.
Thank you, Dave. The US, because it's the US, I think, first of all, it's me coming from a French-speaking country, it's English. This thing of being able to be bilingual, I really like it, even if I still can get rid of my French accent. And Villanova University, because it is a great university in the sense that we are getting trained, especially in my field, what I'm doing, we are getting trained on something, like theoretically, and we go on the field, we try to apply it. So your knowledge that you will be gaining in class, you really try to apply it in the international development world to see how it is. And you have this chance to travel every semester in my program. I say in my program, I'm speaking for what I know. And also you have this ability to have like a summer internship where you can really immerse yourself with one of our partners in the developing world, or depending on the project that you are working on. But you can go there during the summer, spend all your summer, everything will be paid, but you don't get paid, but everything will be covered. But you can immerse yourself into the international development, and that weigh a lot in your CV when you will be looking for a job, or when you will be looking, to pursue a PhD or something like that.
Thank you so much, Dave. Nicole, this is your time.
As you know, you live in Ireland. Ireland it has a rich, it has a diverse, and it has a beautiful culture. The unique Irish dance, of course, the cuisine, the the language, of course, it has two formal language. And so you would want to come to Ireland, of course, and it's almost always cold. It's almost always cozy here. So yeah, that is for Ireland. It has the beautiful rolling hills of Ireland. You would want to come and visit and come to study. And of course, University of Galway, and especially my program, I feel like it has an international side of it, because we deal with all of the emerging themes about gender, about masculinity, about climate change, about we deal with all of the emerging issues, trendy issues. And so you'd want to come to University of Galway and my study, of course, and to have that international exposure and deal with emerging themes. And also, I feel like my University of Galway is highly supportive, because I remember when I had the opportunity to pursue the graduate study program in Geneva, I had to just write an email to my course coordinator. I'm like, is there any way you could fund me or something like that? A relationship, like you all mentioned again. And then my school was able to fund my accommodation in Geneva. And so it has that ability. And we also did field trip out of the country. We went to Belgium. So you would want that international exposure where you also have a supportive school, all of those things. Yes, I think that's it. You should come to University of Galway.
Tapie, this is your time. Tell us about the University of Glasgow and the United Kingdom.
Well, thank you. They don't call it Glasgow here, they call it Glasgow. That's how they call it. But so yeah, I think why should you consider Glasgow in Scotland, the UK, and maybe this program in particular? I think the first thing is that you have an opportunity to learn at a Russell Group University. You know, Glasgow is a Russell Group University. I never thought at one point in time I'll be at a Russell Group University. I mean, it's in the same group with Cambridge, Oxford, so it's the same group of universities. So you'll be learning at the 87th university that is ranked 87th in the world, 12th in the UK, ranked 13th in the world in terms of research impact. So I mean, you know what you're coming for. And then the assessment in the program, particularly, I really love the assessment. It's very practical. It's very contemporary. It's like you're doing everyday activities that you probably do at work. We don't really have essays. We have policy briefs, peer reviews. We have intelligence briefings and things like that. So they are really, really practical things that you can experience every day in a work setup. And then you also get exposure to some of the world's popular academics who have written books that you're like, oh, I read this guy's book, but you just be there, face to face, and you'll be having a class. And then particularly about this program, the transition and the mobility, because under this program, you will go to Trento, Italy, and then you go to the Czech Republic, the Charles University. So I think that gives an opportunity to travel, first of all, and it keeps you on your toes to be responsible and also plan. So it's a way to get exposure, but a way to develop yourself as well in terms of your planning skills as well.
Lovely, thank you so much, and thank you for the correction, the accent. Thank you so much, Tapie. I'm gonna proceed to Dr. Gertrude. Please tell us about. I understand you have been to several institutions, including here in Ireland, in Cork, and as well you have learned there in Hong Kong. Tell us about those places. Why should the viewer that is watching right now, the listener that is listening right now, consider coming there?
Okay, I mean, Ireland has been sold quite a bit so far. Beautiful culture, friendly people. I would go back there any day. And I feel like the world-class education as well. Coming from the global south to Ireland for the first time, I really got to get a new feel of a different sense of education, different kind of learning, where you're blogging, you're meeting with your classmates, like different techniques of learning. That was my first experience of that. And it made me really love to do research because of the very supportive culture that was there. And I think that was the first time I got to understand that I'm an academic, because I was allowed, that free expression of doing that. So yeah, definitely Ireland. If you can get the Ireland Fellows program fellowship, it's really good experience, although it's very short. For me, I felt like 1 year went by too fast. Yeah, but I mean, if you can carry on to PhD or whatever, you get more time to live there. Yeah, then Hong Kong. Well, I mean, if you want to experience a different continent, for me, that was the first motivation. I was like, I've never been to Asia. I want to go there. If you're open-minded enough to want to experience something new, but also, you know, world-class universities. The Hong Kong PhD Fellowship offers, you know, scholarships for 8 funded universities. So it's not just Lingnan University where I studied it, but there's a choice of 8 universities, of which I think it's 2 of them that are in the world ranking, like top 100. So very world-class universities. And also the ability to be able to travel around for conferences. They pay for everything if you're on the PhD fellowship, and just, you know, a different exposure to different kinds of knowledge, you know, from the east to the west. You know, you get an exposure to all of it. Professors from different places. It's very international as well. So, you know, and they learn. We learned in English as well. So Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China. So don't think you'll come here and be forced to learn Chinese. It's mostly English taught. Yeah, so you'll be fine in Hong Kong even if you don't have Chinese. So it's separate from China in that sense. Yeah, so I think that's what I would say about Hong Kong, plus the money. But you don't want to, you know, study for the money. You know, you need to have other motivation. But the money is really good over here.
It is indeed really good. Thank you so much, Dr. Gertrude, for those beautiful words. Yeah, so this marks the end of our Indaba. Thank you so much to our viewers and listeners for tuning in. And of course, yes, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the best panel in the world for a job well done. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel for more. Also remember to visit our website, which is globalsouthopportunities.com, for global opportunities including scholarships, fellowships, jobs, internships, grants, funding. We also accept, review, and publish opinion articles. So do contact us for more information regarding this wonderful opportunity. From the entire GSI production team, goodbye and see you in our next episode.